We are now moving on to the sine ratio. The rule of thumb for sine is sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. And the acronym I mentioned before, SOT cut TOA, SOT being sine, is opposite over hypotenuse. So when you have information of an opposite and a hypotenuse in your triangle, you know it's the sine button. Let's take a look at this first question here. I've got an unknown numerator calculation and an unknown denominator. So we're going to start here with the unknown numerator. This is going to find us the length of a side. So let's start this question by labeling. So label the sides. We've got the hypotenuse, which is opposite the right angle. We go from the angle to the opposite side and label that. And the remaining one is the adjacent, and that sits beside the angles. Now we're going to write the rule. We know based on this information that it is a sine, and obviously this video is on sine. And the reason we know it's sine, if I go back and show you, is we've got a hype, opposite, and no adjacent, and we've got an SOH, so, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So we now need to substitute in. So sine 41 equals the opposite, which is the value of x, over the hypotenuse, which is the value of 26. So from there we have to multiply the denominator and rewrite. So we cross this out, this denominator of 26, and we give it to the sine. And now we flip it back to front and go x equals 26 times sine 41 degrees. And in our calculator it looks like this. 26 times sine button 41 equals, and we get a number of 17.05753475, and in this case I'm going to round to one decimal place. I'll do one. I'll do two for the next one. So we have the first and second decimal place, and I put a line between those and underline the looking number. And then I look at that number 5 and realise that it has to round up, because any number between 5 and 9 makes this rounding number go up. So the answer is going to be 17.1, and the unit of measurement is metres, so you must put m in there. So just to go back through this, we labelled the triangle. We figured out we had an opposite and a hypotenuse, which makes it the sine. We write the rule for sine. We substitute in. We then multiply the denominator and rewrite. So we flip it back to front. We calculate this in our calculators, which is 26 times sine 41 equals. Write the full answer, rounding as necessary, and we write the answer with the units. We're now going to move on to the second question here and do exactly the same thing, but this time it's the unknown denominator. So we need to label first, starting from the hypotenuse. So we start at the right angle and go across to the longest side. We then go from the angle across to the opposite side, and that is the opposite. And what remains is the adjacent, and that's the one that sits between the two angles. So we have, as we know, we have an opposite and a hypotenuse, which fits with the sine rule. So we write the rule first. Sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. We're now going to do our substitution. So sine 17 degrees equals, and our opposite is 12, and our unknown is our hypotenuse, and that's why the x sits on the denominator this time, because we are focusing on the denominator question. Now we have to do a bit of swapping around here. So swap the sine with the x. So circle the x, circle sine 17. Draw my arrows to indicate I'm going to swap them around, and now we rewrite. 12 stays on the top, and the sine 17 degrees goes on the bottom. And now we read down and we calculate like this. 12 divided by sine 17 equals, and we get a big number, and it is 41.043, 64344. And as I said before, I'm going to round this one to 2 decimal places. So I place the line between the second and third numbers in the decimals, and I underline the looking number, and that looking number is sitting between 0 and 4, which tells me that this is going to stay. So my answer is 41.04, and the units of measurement are centimetres.